Hello and welcome to the show, everybody. I am the only host of this podcast, always have been, Rudy Saint-Claire, and joining me against tradition to the side of me is the one and only Rusty Buckets, and digitally to the side of him is the legendary Alex Hoops.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, see, it's tough knowing like what side is what, being oriented that way. If you're listening at home, be sure to subscribe to the Also Rusty Buckets YouTube channel so you can get in on these live streams and become part of the show. Join the chat. Today, we're going to be reacting to hot takes from you guys, the listeners. We got a couple assembled from Twitter, one from a channel post on the Rusty Buckets channel, and the rest are going to be from the live chat. So, if you got a burning opinion, please be sure to drop it here in the chat for us. Fellas, are we ready to start reacting, or do we want to get anything off of our chests before we get going?
I killed
Let's
a man.
rock and roll, baby.
Oh,
What?
Okay. All right. Just straight to the. Our first take comes from Cole the Boat. He says Jokic and Giannis are one ring away from easily being top 10 all time. This is the title take, the one in the thumbnail and title of this episode on YouTube. I skew the truth just slightly to make it fit more neatly into the title, as we often do on the hot takes titles. But fellas, how are we feeling about this opinion about all-time rankings and Jokic and Giannis?
I'll let you lead on this one, Alex.
I mean, you're letting someone who cares incredibly little about all-time rankings lead this discussion, but
I'm jealous.
I mean, I don't really care that much about the amount of ring. I do think resume and stuff like that is important. Like, obviously the ultimate goal of being in the NBA is winning a championship. Like, for the most part, if you're a player at that level of the Jokic and Giannis level, your goal is to win a championship and win as much as you can before you have to retire. But also, I don't necessarily care that much how many rings you win, because it's so team based. Like, there's so many good players that only have one ring or two rings because they just never had enough talent around them and didn't have a good enough team to really win more than that. Like, Jokic and Giannis are both players who they elevate the floor of their team and elevate the ceiling of their team more than just about any other player in the NBA right now, and they're on that level of Hall of Fame or all-time great talent. But if you don't have a good enough team around you, then the amount of rings that you're going to finish your career with is going to suffer pretty significantly. That being said, I mean, these guys are probably going to end up top 10 all time, regardless of how many more rings they win. I think that's kind of just the trajectory that they're on.
Yeah, that's why I think both of them one ring, if that was all they got from here, would be pretty disappointing. The way I kind of view it in terms of evaluating rings to all-time rankings is almost like you kind of do the eye test and the stats and all that to get an idea of where these guys are as talents. And then among each tier of talent, how you really stack them up, how you order them is more just based on who has the more impressive trophy case.
Yeah.
That can come in a variety of different trophies, whether it be championships or otherwise. But of course, championships, that's an important one.
Right.
So I think championships is a reflection of the player's ability as a lead option, because there have been players that have had help similar to that of Jokic or Giannis that aren't Jokic or Giannis, therefore didn't win, it's never black and white. It's never simple. It's just kind of vibes. All-time rankings are just vibes, and we all have different vibes. That said, in terms of being in the same talent category as guys that are currently top 10 in most people's lists, I think both of them are absolutely in that category. So regardless if it's ring or whatever, guys that are in the top, from 11 to 20, I think they will be better than them and are better than them as basketball players. And then the ring's just the cherry on top that makes it easier to argue.
Forget out just for a second and imagine their careers stopped right here today. Who are the guys in your both of you respectives all-time 10 who are just, they're not passing them yet for sure. Like guys like Michael Jordan, probably obviously better than
Well,
Jokic
they're not in my top 10 right now because they haven't. So it's not everyone in my top 10 they haven't surpassed. But honestly, after the top 10, if you got me on the right day, you could convince me either of them were in the top 15 because they're just fucking ridiculously talented players who in a very short amount of time have very much filled the trophy case.
So what I will say as my response to that question, Rudy, I am not going to say where I have Hakeem Olajuwon all time.
Oh boy.
But if their careers were to end today, they would not be over Hakeem Olajuwon to me. To me, like a guy like Hakeem that's like they're not past him yet. And I don't know where people have Hakeem. I'm not going to say where I have Hakeem. I probably said it on the podcast before.
I know where he has Hakeem.
But everyone after where I have Hakeem, there's probably you could make an argument and
which means
put together a good debate.
Which means there's room for both of them in the top 10.
Right.
That's what I'm hearing. I mean,
you could make. I'm not saying I have them there. I'm just saying you could make an argument that I wouldn't hate.
I mean, I make the point pretty regularly that it's like there's the Michael and LeBron tier, and then honestly, after that, in the top 10, you can do some moving around, and most people do. There's names that have to be there for pretty much everyone, but other than that, like there are people that would put Wilt number 3, and I have him like 12. You know what I mean? So yeah. There we go. All-time lists are complicated. That's the takeaway here.
That's why I've never done one, and will never ever do one.
All right, just have that's your line in the sand, huh? As a content creator,
I don't care that much about all-time rankings.
He has Hakeem 23rd. That's funny.
Friends of the show, Desmond Novak and Double D are pondering what jersey I got on, and Denver got it right. It's Jay Crowder.
Oh my god!
The answer to the question is never like think what would a psychotic person have. There you go. That's what Rudy's wearing.
Yeah. Dre hit him up. Longtime chatter says the T-Wolves are missing the playoffs this year. Alex, this seems like one where maybe you would want to let that marinate a little bit, or are you going to immediately jump to defend your Wolves? Even though they're not your Wolves.
I mean, it's a hot take for sure, but like, if you look at their season last year, they were 42-40. To make the playoffs outright last year, you had to be a 44-win team. So they were 2 wins off of being a playoff team outright and not having to go through the play-in. However, I think the West got more complicated this year and even more competitive. So unless the Timberwolves grab a top 6 seed, which I'm not saying that's impossible, I'm personally high on the Wolves. So I think that it's pretty likely that they make the playoffs outright. However, if you think that they're going to struggle to be in the 6th seed or higher, it's entirely reasonable that, yeah, they could miss the playoffs. It's the play-in. Like the Heat almost missed the playoffs, and then they went to the finals. So, like, if you don't think that they're going to make the playoffs outright, then, yeah, there's definitely a chance that they could miss the playoffs.
Yeah, in the Western Conference, there are going to be at least 3 teams that I think in the East would be playoff teams that will not make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So the Timberwolves are not like leagues better and clearly better than, those bottom 3. It's perfectly reasonable to consider them a bottom 3 of those 11. So they could definitely be there. But I also feel like, I especially feel like they got a lot better once it was Mike Conley instead of
D'Lo.
And D'Lo.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of curious what their record was to close the season with him.
They were like 500, I'm pretty sure. I can
still
look post All-Star break. But I mean,
also, obviously it's preseason, and I've seen very little preseason stuff. But what I have seen, it looks like they're trying to address Cat's role on the offense being a little weird and like actually being more deliberate with how they use him.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot. I hope that actually translates to the regular season.
Yeah.
Because like it was a lot of the times, like he's obviously not a defensive guy, and you're putting him out there for his offense, but then like not really looking for him. So it's like, what's the fucking point then? But Hopefully that's changing.
Yeah.
Just Cat's only out there for cardio and gravity.
Yeah, Cat's out there for Twitter to dunk on him. That's what Cat's out there for.
Well, I mean, you said he's out there for like gravity, and honestly, like the best version of Cat to me, and this is not an indictment on Cat, but this has been said before. This is not new information, but Cat is best used when he is being a driver and just a flamethrower from the perimeter.
Mm-hmm.
When he's just pulling the clip on catch and shoot threes every single time, like, yeah, he's going to knock him down. And then he's an insanely good driver. Like, you can't stop a guy who's 7 feet tall and like 230 pounds barreling down the lane at you. Like, that's absurd. Now, the post-up stuff can be in small doses, and I think it's effective. But when he starts getting fixated on being a post player, that's where I think things start to fall apart for him. But yeah, honestly, like, not like almost like a glorified 3-and-D wing, but like with extra stuff is like,
and no
you're going to
D.
get a lot out of Cat being that.
Yeah. They should just have him involved in sets as a play finisher pretty regularly, just pretty much on everything.
Be insane. And that's what they've been doing in preseason. It's looked really, really, really good.
Yeah.
Someone
20 smackaroos!
Obviously, we appreciate your donation. Thank you for the super chat. Aramis Jones says, I'm a Pelicans fan. What's y'all's opinion on us moving Brandon Ingram to play a more point guard role and him being the main facilitator on our team? CJ will be more off ball. Is this something that's happening or something that we're like, okay?
That sounds right to me.
Like,
sounds like how it should be.
Prove that CJ isn't truly a shooting guard, even though he's just like,
well,
kind of been pigeonholed into doing that.
The league kind of just has moved into the direction of like the lead ball handler, big wing.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think in terms of being a playmaker, in terms of being a ball handler, it's not like CJ is like notably better than Brandon. So it's like, you might as well have your guy who's also far more of a scoring threat and, has more gravity. Might as well have the ball be in that guy's hands rather than CJ's, who's not really scaring people nearly as much. No offense to CJ McCollum, the greatest non-all-star of all time.
CJ McCollum, better podcaster or NBA player?
I don't listen to any of his podcasts, so I'm going to go with player.
He does a wine review in tandem with his NBA episode.
He is definitely a better NBA player than podcaster, but he is.
I don't know, man. That podcast is pretty good.
Rudy,
not as good as ours.
You're wearing a Jay Crowder Cavs jersey right now.
Yeah, I know ball.
That's one perspective.
Alex, do you think that this is a good move for the Pelicans?
Yeah. I'm kind of. I mentioned this in the video I posted today. Talking about the Pelicans when we don't even know if Zion's going to be playing, I'm like, sure, you can run Brandon Ingram at point guard. Why not? Like, put CJ off ball. Is Zion playing? No, doesn't matter. Like, who cares?
Yeah, that's fair for sure. But I definitely think, in the idealized what the Pelicans look like, everybody healthy, that's the move. I agree.
Yeah, I agree for sure. If Zion's healthy, that's the way to go about it.
I also would love to see, I really think Zion should be used in a ton of handoff action. I like him getting playmaking opportunities for sure.
Yeah. I feel like if Brandon Ingram really turns into a playmaker first, a faux point guard who's like 6.5 feet tall, then he'd really amount to being the Evan Turner guy he's supposed to be.
6.5 feet tall isn't that tall. I'm pretty sure Brandon Ingram's like 6'9".
I thought he was like 6'7".
Whatever.
We got $2 from LP. Thank you.
Ooh.
It doesn't quite give us a full air horn thank you, like the 20.
I'll raise my eyebrows and say thank you. Still,
yeah,
you're welcome.
But they say Lakers making the finals, assuming health, permits it. I suppose. How we feel about this?
Yeah, that was I did so the video I did today, I'm probably going to be calling back to it a lot because it had something about literally every single NBA team. The video was the biggest X factor for every NBA team. And for the Lakers, it's like they have a pretty good roster. Like, that's a good team on paper. Mm-hmm. It's like, are both AD and LeBron healthy at the same time long enough for them to get a good enough record to, be in the playoffs? And then after that, are they both healthy for the duration of the playoffs? And if the answer to both of those questions are yes, then yeah, they could make the finals. I see no reason why not.
I do see one reason why not.
Well, the Denver Nuggets, yes.
The Denver Nuggets. I don't think more bench depth and LeBron being fully healthy is the difference between winning that series or not. I definitely think it's the difference between getting swept or not, but I'm still picking Denver quite comfortably.
Yeah, I would take Denver in a series for sure.
But whose roster is more fragile? Because this take has a little bit of injury speculation built into it. Sort of gave ourselves.
Definitely the Lakers.
Do you think the Lakers are more fragile than the Nuggets?
Easily.
I feel like if one of the two best players on LA goes down, they're probably better off than if, let's say, Jokic goes down for the
If
Nuggets.
LeBron or AD are out, the Lakers are not winning a title 100%.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair. But wouldn't that be something to see for Anthony Davis with the LeBron-less Lakers?
Listen, to be fair, with just how I mean, the Lakers are a more deep team, but if the Nuggets also lost like Jamal Murray, yeah, they'd also be pretty much out of it.
Yeah.
And to be fair, last year was the first year where that core finally got fucking healthy. Mm-hmm. It's not exactly a guarantee that that's just going to happen year after year from now on. But yeah, healthy, I'm going with the Nuggets pretty easily.
Yeah, I'm with it.
All right. Well, thank you, LP, for your $2.
Yes, thank you.
Saturn's 47 says Desmond Bane is better than Klay Thompson. Personally, I agree really enthusiastically, but that's because of my bias as a Grizzlies fan. How do you guys feel about this?
I think that's fair enough. I think Desmond Bane's probably more consistent, less likely to take really dumb shots. Probably a better defender at this point. Probably not by that big of a difference, though. And definitely a better on-ball playmaker. That's no question about that. Klay Thompson's last year's shooting, I'm pretty sure, was his most impressive season shooting the ball from outside. And I don't think Desmond quite competes with the volume. But I think as an all-around product, Desmond Bane over Klay is a perfectly valid argument. Holy shit, that's loud.
Yeah, this is one that I'm just like, if you feel this way, that's fine. I haven't done like enough. I've never thought about this comparison like super in depth, but I mean, yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that Desmond Bane does that puts him in the realm to be allowed to be argued over Klay Thompson. Mm-hmm. I think that's totally fair. The volume is really the only thing that like, can Desmond Bane's volume scale to like Klay Thompson's volume and still be like a hyper efficient 3-point shooter?
Well, I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel like in terms of overall scoring, they're pretty much neck and neck in points per game. But Desmond's taking more shots inside the arc.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not saying I'm saying like, is Klay so good? I'm almost arguing this in favor of Desmond Bane, but like, is Klay's 3-point shooting right now so good that it outweighs all of the other stuff that Desmond Bane does everywhere else?
Yeah.
So like, even if you're concerned about Desmond Bane being able to have 40% 3-point shooting on like 11 attempts per game, it's like, well, he may not, we don't know, but it also doesn't matter that much because he does so much else on the offensive end.
Yeah. Mir gave us $2. Appreciate the donation.
All right.
Says Jordan would never win 8 straight finals.
I have a strong opinion on this.
Oh boy.
Someone in the replies mentioned this opinion, and there it is, but I'll just explain it. The Bulls really never, whenever they had ever dealt with in the Michael Jordan era, had dealt with a big man. That big man didn't really have a dominant secondary option, which meant they could super duper load up on them. Pretty much Patrick Ewing. Patrick Ewing is the main one. And John Starks didn't make for a good enough second option, and God knows he should have never been their second option.
Yeah.
So that's how they would manage to deal with the fact that they always, as they always say, kind of had an issue with big men. 95, of course, they lose to Shaquille O'Neal and Patrick Ewing, fucking Penny Hardaway. Big man, great secondary option. Now, I still believe they would have beaten that team fully healthy for a year. Michael there the whole time. That whole argument, if obviously we're talking about them going 8 straight, Michael doesn't retire in the middle of his career for no reason.
For quote unquote no reason.
Yes. But I think going to the I think they go to the finals. I think they go to the finals every single year. And I think the first time they face Hakeem's second option is like fucking Kenny Smith. And they can still do enough to load up on Hakeem to survive the fact that they don't have a big that can really hang with Hakeem, obviously. But next year, when the Bulls are trying to win their 5th straight title, so they have a lot of wear and tear at this point. Also, there's a metric of like whether or not Horace Grant leaves the team. Because he obviously left after Michael left after the first year with Scotty. I would say no, and then do you trade for Dennis Rodman? Who knows? All kinds of what if shit here. But once it's Clyde and Hakeem, once you have that secondary option, once you have to deal with both fronts there, and the fatigue of being in your 5th finals in a row, I think that would be when Houston got them. But I do believe they would have won one of those two.
That's probably where I fall. And I'm also like, you guys know how much I love Hakeem. I just, he would have gotten one of those. He would have.
Yeah. Like when Clyde Drexler was in the finals against the Bulls as the best player before he had Hakeem Olajuwon. Right. So like that shit went to 6. Yeah. Was that one 5? I think it was 6 when they played Portland.
I think 6 is right. I could be wrong.
Yeah. So I just think, I think the 95 team, ironically, the team that obviously had the worst standings, but when they got in the playoffs, they fucking whooped ass, obviously. Yeah. And I think that team would have beat the Bulls trying to do it a 5th time.
Yeah, I'm with that.
Jerome T. Green says the 8th to 10th seeds in the West will be 5 to 7 games over 500. The West is extremely competitive.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we were getting at talking about the Timberwolves. Like 44 wins was the marker of 5 to 7 might be a little high. It might be a little
It would take like
high.
some teams getting really beat up in both bottom ends of both conferences.
So for some context, to really put things into perspective, the 4th seed Phoenix Suns last year were 45 and 37.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So it gets crazier. The 10th seed was 40 and 42. So the difference between the 4th seed and the 10th seed was 5 games. Yeah. And the West got more competitive than it was last year. So like the separation is going to be so low. What are you all giggling about over there?
Nothing. Don't worry about it.
Unbelievable.
Well, thank you, Jerome T. Green, for the 7 Canadian smackaroos. Do appreciate that. We'll go to the front of the show, 3-cone.
Yeah.
Chet Holmgreen finishing top 10 in DPOY voting this
Don't
season.
do the Zach Levine shit to Alex. It's bad enough you do it to me. There's no way you can sit at Holmgreen.
I'll leave right now.
All right.
Chet
is there another E in there?
Sure. If I squint,
No.
These glasses aren't for anything. I can't read regardless. Chet Holmgren finishing top 10 in DPOY voting this season. Fellas, is this realistic or is this too hot of a take for us?
Top 10 is not.
Yeah, I could see this for
sure. Do they even track it all the way to 10?
I mean, you can see who got votes, but I don't know.
Yeah. Whatever.
This doesn't feel like that hot of a take, honestly, which is awesome to say.
Yeah. I think Murmur wants us to follow up on the conversation from earlier. If Jordan didn't get Jerry Krause, would he win 6? Thank you for the $2 again.
I kind of feel like the Bulls franchise and the help around Michael, like, I know this is probably crazy to say, but just because of like the, I guess, anti-Michael propaganda from the LeBron fans, which to be fair, they're just fighting back against the anti-LeBron propaganda. But like, I don't think the help around Michael Jordan was that crazy regularly. I think it was very good and very form fitting, but like I don't think that Jerry Krause did that many things that were like, holy shit, this is the wonder GM that just spawned a great career and roster around Michael all the time.
Yeah, I took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah, like fucking like the 96 Bulls were giving Steve Kerr 23 minutes a game. No offense, but like, come on. Like, it's not like those Bulls were insanely stacked. They were just a well-designed team that had Michael fucking Jordan.
Right. Yeah, people overthink it. Like, it's not that complicated. They had Michael Jordan, and then they were a good team. They weren't.
Yes.
They weren't more. They weren't less. It's just they had Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. Obviously, give Scottie his credit, but like, come on.
Yeah, like I think you just get a guy of Scotty's tier and then just solid role players from there. You've done your job, and that's what they did.
Yeah, yeah, that's about all you can hope for.
Got a couple of people submitting some Jamal Murray takes. I'll just go with this one. Colorado Conservative says Jamal Murray should be considered a dark horse candidate for most improved player this year.
I don't know. I feel like he's probably like a chill in the regular season, pop off in the playoffs guy.
Yeah, especially.
What were his numbers last year? Because like
I think like 21, 22.
I mean, the Nuggets kind of did that as a whole in the last
24
20
and
games
6.
last year.
I mean, he could. Yeah, if he like turns into some 30-point per game guy, I could see it. But like he would have to do the thing that like kind of annoys me that people say when it comes to most improved player, where they're like, making the leap from all-star to superstar is the hardest leap to make. And I'm like, yeah, but does that make you the most improved player? It's like,
well, I think when people make the leap to all-star to superstar, they don't win MIP. I think it almost always
Ja did that one year, didn't he?
Well, did he leap to superstar?
Yeah,
that's like the argument people made. I'm not commenting whether or not he did, but that was the argument for him to win it was he made that leap.
I'm just saying when the MIP award is rewarded, if you go and look at it, usually it's somebody that was okay that became really good. Very often it's not someone who's really good who became excellent.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of where Jamal Murray falls for me is like he's already really good and he would have to like ascend to, I don't know. It's so arbitrary that putting like a requirement on it is just ridiculous. So I don't see him winning MIP.
I don't believe that the way that Denver runs their offense is really built for like crazy high volume scoring. Like even Jokic saw a significant dip in points per game when everybody was healthy because like the name of the game is to get the best shot available using Jokic's ridiculous ability to generate open shots. And Jamal's like not like if Jamal just started taking the ball more and trying to create for himself more, it would interrupt the flow of the offense. So like he gets the shots that he gets.
Yeah.
Yep. Several time super chatter. This is actually their 5th super chat in Shootaround history, just on this channel. Richie gave us $2. Say Woody Harrelson is the greatest basketball actor of all time.
Yeah, you'd be correct.
Well, I'm trying to, other than...
Yeah, you're really hard on for what's the winning time right now. It's probably distorting your view on this a little bit.
Well, I don't know. It's kind of a very weird thing to compare, like trying to portray a real-life basketball player versus whatever character Woody Harrelson has that's not Magic Johnson. My whole thing with winning time is just that it's ridiculous how much so many of those actors look so much like the players they're playing, and then also are very talented actors, because it's not common that you can get both of those things. But I guess we'll never see more of it because they canceled the fucking show after the Celtics won.
Spoilers.
No. Well, looks like we got another 7 Canadian smackaroos from Jerome once again. Ooh. Appreciate the donation. From a pure skill and basketball genius standpoint, Jokic is top 5 of all time. I don't know what this means. What is pure skill?
The word skill means nothing really nowadays. Skill is the most overused and like meaningless word at this point. But sure, I don't know.
I think he has an argument for best offensive player of all time. I'll give you that right there.
Yeah.
at bare minimum, best offensive center of all time. But yeah,
I think that's without a doubt.
Yeah.
At least just didn't call him the highest IQ basketball player of all time.
Right.
Otherwise,
that'd be
we
a
have to
yikes.
grill him a little bit. Murmur really wanting us to get in our 90s bag here.
Yeah.
Appreciate this was the third $2 donation from Murmur. Thank you very much for supporting the show. Thoughts on Scotty almost leading the Blazers to the finals?
I think he was kind of the guy that stepped up when the moment called upon it, but that Blazers team was just kind of like, yeah, everyone here is pretty fucking good, with like not a huge gap between the main individuals, you know. But like when it was time, it was like, all right, Scotty's been here before, you do it. But like if you look, his numbers were not like crazy impressive. It's not like Scotty was putting up 25, 5, and 5, and his team almost made it.
Right.
And to be fair, like yeah, it was Kobe and Shaq, but it was inexperienced Kobe and Shaq that eliminated him. So it's not like. Also, No, I'm thinking of something different. I think the Lakers went up 3-2 in that series. I could be wrong though.
Yeah, beats me. I'm not the history aficionado here.
I was looking at it a while ago. Yeah. Daisy again.
Yeah. Then we got a one from way earlier in the chat that's been repeated a few times, so it's a long-time chatter. I'll respect their wishes and put it on there. Gogito 9000 says Bam Adebayo is more impactful than Jaylen Brown. Kind of an odd comparison considering they play like such vastly different positions. But that aside, fellas, how we feel about this? Personally, I kind of agree with them.
I think the center position kind of has a leg up in terms of impact, just because like being a very good defensive center in terms of impacting each possession in a way, like on the defensive end, like Bam Adebayo is probably positively affecting the defense literally every single possession to a significant degree. And offense is more inconsistent than defense. So just on a game to game basis, you could argue the moments where a player makes an impactful play or whatever, Bam Adebayo is doing that more. But it's also super weird and difficult to compare bigs and wings.
Yeah, I think the word impact like inherently has a predisposition towards defense, and anytime like you're comparing two players and you're talking about impact, I know there's discussions around whether or not Jaylen Brown is a good defender. Some people will tell you he's an amazing defender. Some people tell you he's the worst defender in the world, whatever. That's besides the point. It's like one guy is a pretty solid offensive player, that guy being Bam, and he's also an elite defender. And then the other guy is like Jaylen Brown, a good offensive player. I don't know exactly what you'd call Jaylen Brown, but he's a very solid offensive player. I don't know. He can't dribble with his left hand, but like, I don't know. Impact-wise, to me, Bam Adebayo, yeah, he's more impactful than Jaylen Brown. I don't think that doesn't seem that egregious of a take to me at all. I'm pretty comfortable with that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it'd be ludicrous to say he's better either. Just because,
Yeah.
Not same difference, because again, just the leg up and the advantage that the center position has in terms of being impactful, but I can definitely see that argument for sure.
Yeah. Kind of building off of this though, is there a meaningful difference between being a more of an impact player than being better? Because like if the objective of basketball is to win the game or whatever, then if you're a more impact player, parentheses, impact on winning, how could someone be better at you if you're making the team win more? Well, I get that like Steven Adams might not seem like he's better than I don't know, Trey Jones, but Trey Jones is obviously way better at handling the ball and passing like that. So like,
I think, how would I even put this? Like, I don't know. I think there's not every impact is created equal.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, it's like it's very contextual. Like a guy who is very impactful for one team in like a spot up shooting and like defensive role, that player is impactful in like an entirely different way than like like a Giannis. Like you could say that like one player, they're both very impactful, but one is different because like one is obviously a superstar, first option MVP caliber player, and then the other's like very impactful because they're exactly what the team needs and like does the stuff that helps the team win, but it's just like different ways. I don't know.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying though. It makes sense.
Because there's definitely some players in the league who I think a lot of people comfortably say are like high impact players, but wouldn't as comfortably call them better than whoever else, you know. So
yeah, I made a video forever ago on impact versus
like
stats.
4+ years ago.
Yeah, it's definitely something I should revisit with better opinions and video making skills.
Well, we got some super chats to address, so I appreciate the chat, Gogito, but you didn't give us money, so we're going to cut you off there. Murmur with fourth donation this stream. Thank you very much, Murmur. Dame trade is literally similar to KG in Boston. I guess in terms of like a losing player getting traded into a winning situation, sure.
Who was stuck with a bad franchise, but they're not at all similar players, and they're not at all going to have a similar role. And also, the Bucks were that's also not similar because the Bucks were a championship level team, and the Celtics were a lottery team
with Paul Pierce.
with Paul Pierce. If the Bucks had won like 30 games last season, and Dame was a defensive guy, then it'd be similar.
I get the sentiment. It's not a 1-to-1 by any means, but I generally, it makes sense.
It's really like just the narrative. I couldn't see Dame getting into like a more reserved role on the Bucks. It's not like he's going to start averaging 19.9 points a game or whatever. Like he's still going to be flirting with 30 points a game probably, you know. So I don't see it similar in terms of basketball, but in terms of storytelling, there is a lot of parallels.
Yeah.
Jerome,
cool. I actually hadn't thought about that. That's
yeah, no, it was a good observation. Jerome with, I believe, their third, perhaps fourth donation of $7 Canadian. Appreciate your support of the stream.
Shout out to them. Thank you.
If Cleveland can figure out their playoff woes, they are an East dark horse. They have a little bit of everything: defense, shot making, etc. Jacob, this is like your take from a year ago.
Yeah, and they got dicked on by the Knicks. I feel like this. I appreciate the money, but I feel like this is kind of a nothing take because, like, if they figure out being bad in the playoffs, they'll be good in the playoffs. Yeah, I agree.
So my take on this is probably throughout the course of me making the biggest X Factor video, probably the biggest red flag stat that I came across in the process of doing that video is the fact that Evan Mobley shoots 20% on catch and shoot shots. And when he's spending most of his time on the floor with Jarrett Allen, I don't see the Cavs doing anything if Evan Mobley is a 20% catch and shoot player. And also like 0.7 points per possession as a post player. It's untenable. It doesn't work.
That's weird because I know I think in his rookie year, he shot like 40% on mid-range pull-ups. So apparently as a big man, he's a pull-up guy and not a catch and shoot guy, which isn't really useful.
Right, exactly. The thing that he's going to be doing is like, oh, Darius Garland and Jarrett Allen are running a pick and roll. Where's Evan Mobley going to be? He's going to be on the wing. I do think he's pretty solid at attacking closeouts, but like if the defense isn't closing out, then it doesn't matter how good you are at attacking closeouts.
Yeah, if on the scouting report it says there's a 1 in 5 shot, he's going to make it. Don't jump.
Yeah.
How would you compare, Alex, you mentioned attacking closeout. How would you compare his ability to handle the ball to a guy like Jaren Jackson, who has a really similar role, both in terms of defense and in terms of like being a guy who can attack a little bit better off the catch than most bigs and definitely shoot better than 1 in 20 off catch and shoots, even without checking the stats? I know that much, you know.
Jaren Jackson Jr. is a fantastic ball handler for a big man. He is like kind of, I don't want to say the standard because there's probably guys that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, but like in terms of guys who are allegedly 7 feet tall handling the ball, he outside of like, you know, the obvious guys, he's up there for sure. He's insanely good. Mobley is like pretty solid. I think he's better than he gets credit for, but like at a functional level, Jaren Jackson Jr.'s is just head and shoulders way more functional.
All right, let's get through some more of these super chats because we do got people.
Yeah, let's try and hit these fast because I don't want to just only be responding to the people who pay us as much as I like being paid. I want to give the other people time.
Dober Investment says Trey is better than Brunson, Fox, and Morant. Also, Hunter sucks.
I agree.
Better than really?
I mean, maybe not Morant, but definitely Brunson and Fox.
Where does that put Brunson in terms of your guard rankings in the East? Because we had Malik mention earlier. Go ahead and put this on screen. Go back to Dober. Jalen Brunson's the second best guard in the East. I guess that means number 1 is Trey. Number 2 is Jalen Brunson.
I mean, yeah, probably. Who else would it be? Unless I could be someone obvious. Alex seems conflicted.
So I'm just thinking about the way I'm thinking about this is, and it's more like I would advocate for Trey in this conversation above everybody outside of Ja. And to me, the way I think about it and the reason I kind of come to that conclusion is the fact that if you took Trey and you put him on the Kings, do you think the Kings are a worse team with Trey instead of De'Aaron Fox? If you take Trey and you put him on the Knicks instead of Jalen Brunson, do you think that the Knicks are a worse team with Trey instead of Jalen Brunson? Because to me, both of those teams are significantly better with Trey. Because Trey is in my opinion, he's just a better player.
Yeah, I was just thinking of like the clash of like Trey is like a more volume guy, but also that's because he's more capable of that volume.
Right.
But yeah, I just think Trey is better. I like over Ja even. Like I think that's a perfectly reasonable point of view because of the efficiency difference. Trey generates offense like it's insane how much offense Trey generates and manages to be like league average to above it. And I believe this previous year, Ja was at like 55 true shooting, right? Even worse than that.
Yeah, I think that sounds a little high. I remember it being like 49.
We don't have to put Rudy through this again.
Yeah, please do not torture me with facts.
Yeah, I'm gonna say as of right now, Trey like a spot over Ja, but I think they're pretty close.
Yeah, I would agree.
Thank you, Dober. Nicholas Arroyo.
Nope.
Me. Giannis is the best player in the league over Jokic. I think the Nuggets do a good job of covering up Jokic's flaws.
Nope. That's how basketball teams are supposed to work. Nope.
I understand.
So clearly, you could just say it so confidently. They're like 1 and 1As for a lot of people.
They're 1 and 2 for me.
I think most people are 1 and 2. I get what you're saying, Nicholas. But
they use their center like
Jokic
a center.
is
They're
just
hiding
better.
him.
Like, and I understand that Giannis is this is where you can talk about like the different ways of impacting the game. Like their impact is very different. But if you look at top to bottom everything that Jokic is doing on the offensive end, and then you look top to bottom at everything Giannis is doing on the offensive end, it's like it's unbelievable the difference. It's not close.
I mean, you can definitely argue this game on defense on the opposite end of the spectrum, but like this MVP says that Giannis has more flaws than Jokic. I think like in like a playoff setting, you're way more likely to get a bad Giannis game than a bad Jokic game. You don't really get bad Jokic games. He is always flawless. It's pretty fucking ridiculous. And that's ultimately the factor that makes me think he's comfortably better. And like, I don't think the Nuggets do anything unfair. Alex, you're gone, dog.
Your mic cut off. Don't know why, but your mic cut off.
I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, now you're back.
Now?
Yeah.
Yes.
What happened?
Yeah, to me, right now, it's a clear 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nicholas. I'm going to go ahead and skip the line just a little bit. I will get to the other people who have given us some super chats, but Nathan, I almost said Nathan, but
that's Nathaniel. It's just spelled weird.
Oh, well, excuse me. I never knew. Nathaniel says the Nets will be the best defense for $5. Thank you for the donations. Their first donation.
That's
ever.
honestly not that unreasonable.
Yeah.
Between Ben Simmons and Nick Claxton in that order, they're bound to.
And Miguel Bridges, if he starts playing defense more.
Ben Simmons is really the biggest X
Ben
factor.
Simmons.
Yeah, he's been in the pool lately.
Yeah, Ben when he becomes an Olympic swimmer instead.
You could probably do it.
This take,
I'm going no.
In theory, yes. In theory, it makes sense, but even post All-Star break last year, post All-Star break, they had the 13th defense. Like it's not like they were. It's not like they were like a top 10 defense post All-Star break or anything.
Let me make this point as well. Defense is a lot harder to play on a losing team.
Yeah.
When teams are bad, the players start to get dejected and not really put the effort in because what's the point? You're going to lose one way or the other. And that's going to move you down the ranks defensively rather significantly. They're not going to be locked in trying to play their best possible defense every possession when they're going to win 29 games. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose maybe if Mikal Bridges is no longer their faux point guard, Brandon Ingram type role, and instead is just locked in on defense like he was, more for Phoenix, less for Brooklyn. It's more possible that way, but it would have to be a winning context. Like
honestly, their defense is going to be bad because or worse because their offense is bad. Because they're not going to. Also, not to mention that you get more break opportunities when you're constantly breaking shots.
Yeah, defense is so like momentum based that if you're a losing team, it's hard to play good defense.
Yep.
Lunar said earlier for $2, appreciate the donation. The Celtics are going to the finals if they're healthy.
Thank you for the donation. Not a hot take.
No,
it's a lukewarm take. I mean, people are really, really hot on the Bucks right now. So to remember the Celtics exist is
the hot take would be
Celtics Bucks. One of those two are winning the East. That's everyone's saying that.
The hot take would be the Celtics are going to be healthy. That would be the hot take.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair. I mean, but their roster now, would you say that they're a little bit more fragile than before, even though they traded away guys who, have been unavailable in the past, like Robert Williams?
I mean, you can make the same argument for KP. I mean, last year was really his first healthy season in a long time.
Yeah.
Drew Holiday, he's getting older, so you could have concerns about that. Al Horford's 30 billion years old. I mean, the injury thing, I don't think they did get younger in terms of like after you get past the top 5 on that team, but their top 5 still has some kind of like, this could be bad.
I feel like players will go a season without getting hurt. And then people are like, all right, they're cured of being injury prone.
Right.
Like that happened with Porzingis, where last year he played like 77 games. We're like, all right, Porzingis doesn't have injury issues anymore.
Yeah.
Well, appreciate the donation, Lunar. Jerome, with his 4th or 5th, says Jamal Murray is the best non-All-Star ever. It's hard to disagree with that.
I'm not.
For me.
I don't know if I'm going to say that quite yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Playoff rising though. Like I think it'd be really sick if Jamal Murray for the rest of his career in the regular season put up 20 and in the postseason put up 27. That would just be really fun.
Just a little on-off switch.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be my pick, but I get it. I get what you're saying.
Who would be the pick then, if not him?
I mean, it's probably CJ McCollum.
Yeah,
probably CJ McCollum.
Probably CJ McCollum.
Yeah, I suppose like the body of work is bigger. Ratchet fan says Chris Paul will be an All-Star this year.
No.
What are the odds on this? Like, what are the Vegas odds on this?
If I had to give odds, I would say like plus like 450.
Do you know how many fucking excellent guards there are in the Western Conference? Are you joking? There's just no way.
I think plus 450 is fair odds.
What is that Like
it means if you bet $10, you would get $45.
Oh.
So if you bet $100, you would get $450.
Yeah.
I'd go plus 1,000 on that bitch then, but whatever.
Go ahead and really try to tempt them.
I hope you weren't attached to this lighter because I just started doing this.
No. Another one from King of 21 Kings. We actually had this on the docket prior to the super chat, so may just return you your $2. But this is why the best Paramore album (parentheses for Rusty).
I think it's their second best. Nothing's going to beat After Laughter, but This Is Why is excellent. That's all I have to say. Thank you. I appreciate a Paramore fan.
Nicholas Arroyo, once again, another fiver, says, what part of defense do you think is the most important? Communications.
I don't have the patience for you to read.
Well, the people at home listening need to be able to hear.
Yes. Communication. Just if everyone's talking, if everyone's like communicating effectively, like, and you just have NBA size bodies, you're probably going to be fine. That's another thing about defense on a bad team is like bad teams don't really communicate with each other that much.
I would probably go with rim protection.
Well, I guess it's more tangible.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a bunch of different things you could say here. And defense is so like insanely scheme based that it's, it varies very. Like what might be the most important thing for one defense could be completely different than the most important thing for another. But rim protection to me, the reason I say that is because a shot at the rim is still the most valuable shot in basketball. That has been true since the 50s. Like it's always going to be the most valuable shot. Just statistically speaking, it will never not be, unless things just get absolutely out of control over the next however many years. But yeah, if you can't stop people at the rim, they're going to beat you.
Yeah, like shooting can come and go. And like if you lose a game because the team shot 53 pointers and shot like 60% on them, then okay. Yeah. You got cooked. It is what it is. But like if you can just lock up, like stop the rim, you're doing a good job. That's really the main reason why I'm so skeptical of people saying that the Bucks defense is just going to fall off a cliff without Drew. It's like they still have the paint just completely locked down when they have Giannis and Brook on the floor. So like you can fuck up on the perimeter all you want. If you're just making layups impossible, you're playing good defense. And communication is like, that's one of the reasons why I give Draymond so much credit defensively. And to be fair, it's because he just emotes so much, but like he always seems like just such a significant communicator that his impact defensively supersedes what he's doing with his own body. It's like that he's directing his teammates to be in the right spots, stuff like that. That's just so pivotal. It's like if you have NBA bodies and they're in the right spots, you've done your job. And if you can communicate to make sure everyone's in the right spots, you've done your job.
I think communication could probably cover up issues with guard defense, especially if you have a decent enough rim protection scheme going out there, whether it be a free safety Giannis or a Brook Lopez anchor. Being able to know that you're going to die on a screen and to yell switch is going to save you some flack from the nerds watching your ability to stay attached to your man when you get bodied in the pick and roll or whatever. So communication's probably my number one thing as well. But if you really want to get back to basics, size and speed are probably the most important things, just to make the most elementary observation possible. Unless you're Marcus Smart, if your man is a foot taller than you, you're done. If your man is way faster than you, you're done. So size and speed are going to be my contribution to this.
If you really want to get like super macro with this, technically the entire goal of defense is to take away the other team's space. So that would be like, that is the overarching philosophy of defense, because the goal of an offense is to create space. So like whatever traits involve taking space away from the other team, that would be the stuff that is inherently the most valuable.
I was also going to say, you mentioned the like free safety Giannis type role. I think that's the most impactful type of defensive player you can have. They're pretty uncommon that you really can even get a guy that can do that effectively, because you have to worry about leaving people open. But if you have a guy that can like still close out on his man well enough while also just being like a devastating weak side rotation defender, and like a guy who can defend multiple positions, that like gives you so much freedom. So yeah, like a Giannis or Robert Williams, I think was great at that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Nicholas, for that one. And then Jerome, who I've lost count at this point, gave us another 7 Canadian
Man's got deep pockets.
Shout out to him.
Says, my last one for the night, but Sabonis and Sengun being compared to Jokic is asinine. Jokic is a once-in-a-generation player.
I don't understand this perspective, because it's just the point of that comparison is like it's an archetypal thing. Like, you know, the playmaking big man, that's how they are utilized. Saying they're like Jokic doesn't mean they're as good as Jokic is. That's not what people are trying to say when they say that. It's not an insult. Like, you can say that, I don't know if I have a great example off the top of my head, but like a player that shoots a lot of threes, pull up threes, is like Steph. Doesn't mean that they're as good as Steph. It just means that they play like that player does. Sengun and Sabonis, in many ways, operate in a similar fashion to Jokic. They just don't do it as good as Jokic does.
Yeah, like it's pretty much that's it. That's all there is to it.
Couldn't have said it better. You wrapped.
They're not saying Sabonis and Şengün are as good as Jokic. No one's saying that. They're not even saying that they will be as good as Jokic. They're just saying, like, stylistically and how they play and how they're used, there are similarities, which I think is fine.
Yeah. All right.
And now, moving out of the super chat power hour, getting back to some of you freeloaders.
I don't think you guys are freeloaders.
Joseph here says, Luka is not a winning player and will not win a championship until he becomes less ball hoggy. Fellas,
counterpoint.
You want to talk heliocentric?
Counterpoint, he made the Western Conference Finals. Correct.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Just shut up. That's your reaction.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you to shut up, but I don't know. I don't. Really
if you want to say winning at the absolute highest level, at a championship level, how much he like dribbles the ball will hinder him from that, that's fine. The phrase "he's not a winning player," winning isn't just hoisting trophies. You can be a winning player and never win a fucking championship. And Luka is absolutely a winning player. He's been taking his team to the playoffs, other than last year, every year of his career after his rookie year. And like, that's not been with great help either in a difficult Western Conference. I don't want to hear he's not a winning player. That's just dumb.
The Rockets are going to win 40 games from Thomas
You didn't
Poole.
give me money, so I'm going to be meaner about it.
Are the Rockets potentially a 500-ish team with this?
No. And I'll tell you why. They won 22 games last year. An 18-point game increase from year to year would be insane. That is so rare. Like that hardly ever happens.
But
like
the culture. The new culture.
It's not going to happen. I'm high on the Rockets, like, going forward. I think they're going to start leaving the rebuild phase. An 18-game increase from one season to the next is very unusual.
You get -7 wins from Dylan Brooks as well.
40 Nights has been really wanting us to respond to this one. Been spamming it in the chat a little bit. It says, John Stockton was a good role player in too big of a role. Not quite sure I understand this one.
Should I take the role as the John Stockton hater? Take the lead, rather?
This seems subtly directed at you.
I was going to say, this is all you.
I actually disagree with the notion he was a role player in a big role. I think John Stockton was a star player in the wrong role. That's the thing I say about John pretty regularly, is that if you look at his numbers in college, if you look at his film, what exists of it, because it's fucking long time ago, but what he did in college Dude was a 20-plus point per game scorer on 60% shooting as a 6'1" guard. That's a dude. He's a 40% three-point shooter for his career. That's a guy who can score the fucking ball. But in the 1990s or 1980s when he got drafted, the sensibilities were so anti-small guard scoring, and the system that existed with the Jazz when he went there was so heavily predicated on lead point guard playmaking that he got forced into this role that gave him, crazy high all-time numbers, but ultimately made him a less effective player in terms of actually impacting winning. I don't believe that John Stockton was a complete scrub. I think he was a good player that was put in the position to put up numbers that made him look impressive on paper and ultimately not win a finals with a fortunately great teammate for 20 fucking years.
Well said. Couldn't have added or taken anything away from that. 40 also had one earlier in the chat that you wanted to address.
Yeah.
He's a legit MVP candidate right now.
That's why I wanted to point this out, because I was like, are you not a legit candidate when you're top 5? He literally was an MVP candidate last year.
He already is.
Yes, and also 3 years, he just averaged 32. What more does he need to do? What's he going to be in 3 years?
I guess the legit part kind of factors in this idea that OKC will have had their time to round out their winning culture, have some 50-win seasons under their belt, and then voters will be like, okay, for real, are we going to give it to this guy or not just vote for him on the ballot,
I suppose if your take is that he's, literally like, is SGA winning MVP this year for real in 3 years? I think he could be that this next year. I think it really just depends on the context.
Yeah.
I genuinely think Shea has a very real shot at MVP this year.
Yeah, I think that's entirely reasonable.
Yeah, okay, that's what he meant. I'm sorry to jump on you.
Yeah, he has a follow-up saying, to clarify, he was top 5 this year, but nobody was talking about anyone after third.
That's just how it is.
That is how it is.
Yeah.
That's just how it be.
Sanchi said, hot take, with a healthy and MVP level Embiid, the Sixers would have won the championship last year. Basically, if Embiid didn't get hurt, the Sixers won it all. Fellas, is this outrageous or just a hot take?
This is outrageous.
Yeah, it's pretty outrageous. There's no fucking chance they were beating Denver.
They're just not deep enough.
Just no fucking chance they were beating Denver.
Yeah, I guess Denver Nuggets was really that good.
King
they
E
beat
said,
the
Heat in 5.
they're excellent.
They lost 4 games.
The Heat.
They went 16-4, man.
I respect the Nuggets. King E says the league punishing load management will result in more injuries around the stars in the league.
I want to take this.
Ultimately, them sitting out more due to injury.
I think none of us know anything about what load management does and doesn't do to a player's health, nor the impact that it has on it, because there has not been nearly enough scientific research done on this phenomenon as a whole. And speculating does nobody any good because we have no idea at the end of the day. Like, this is something that it could be as simple as, yes, they need less back-to-backs, like, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's also the much more likely explanation that years and years of AAU wear and tear and, like, grueling high school schedules and practice schedules and year-round basketball schedules for people as they're growing up prior to entering the NBA already puts them at a predisposition for frequent injuries. We don't know. There has not been. We talk about load management in very black and white terms when in reality it's genetics play such a massive factor in your predisposition to injuries. And I'm sure for a lot of guys, that's the case. And for other guys like who are super, super durable and like never get hurt, like, do you think Mikal Bridges is an Iron Man in the NBA because he plays every single game and like, oh, why isn't he getting injured? He plays every single game and probably works in the offseason, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, no, he's genetically predisposed to not have to deal with injuries. And then you have a player like Michael Porter Jr. If you look at that family, everyone in that family has had major injuries.
Yeah.
We have no idea how load management impacts players and the good or the bad that it does, because it is such a varied thing across the board. We have no way of knowing.
I do want to say, I hate that like Kawhi Leonard has become the mascot of it. And like, how are we in 2023 and there are still people going like, man, fucking Kawhi Leonard sitting out of these games? Dog, he has a degenerative knee issue. The fact that he is playing basketball alone should be impressive enough, you ungrateful fucks. And I, frankly, there is so much like toxic masculinity around this whole concept. Back in my day, men were men and they would play all 82 games. Shut the fuck up. Who gives a fuck? It's playing basketball, you dork. I think it's fine to be mad that like star players are not playing at times. And I think the solution to this is just to be more communicative about the whole thing and not have it be just a game by game decision as much as is possible. But I like you said, like, I feel like we're talking about shit that we really just are not really that aware of. And like people talk about it, as you said, again, in such fucking black and white terms. I'm like, you guys are talking about this like you know this shit for real. Whenever this kind of topic comes up on my channel, I'm like,
yeah, unless you have like a degree in sports medicine, like I don't really like want to know anyone's opinion on load management, because like I don't have an opinion on load management because I don't know anything about like how this works. Like, who am I to say? I don't know. I
definitely trust Greg Popovich's opinion more than chatter.
Yeah, I'm gonna trust the people whose jobs are to decide how many games a player plays or doesn't play. Like, I don't know anything.
Yeah. Nicholas with another $5 for us. Appreciate the donation. Says, after this year, Giannis will make an argument for a top 5 defender of all time. With the addition of Dame's offense to lighten the load, Giannis will key in on D.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think you could definitely be like, ironically, the Kevin Garnett comparison. Like KG, with the context of a new environment, obviously Giannis is the KG in this point of view. But, more offensive help. He was just able to focus more on the defense and become even more devastating of a defender and win DPOY as a result.
Yeah. Do we have a top 5 defenders of all time list ready off the top of our heads?
No,
Team KG, Tim Duncan, Bill Russell,
Ben Wallace.
Come on. Are we seriously going to? Come on. Are we going to?
That's just off the top of my head, those 4 are in it.
Hakeem,
Tim, KG, and Bill.
Yeah, so do you want Ben Wallace or Giannis Antetokounmpo?
Honestly,
speaking of top 5s, Zeta says Jason Tatum is the 5th best player in the NBA right now.
I think that's probably the range that a lot of people would have him.
Yeah, it's like right there between him and Kevin Durant at that spot. I see pretty often.
Honestly, I feel like the middle of the top 10 in the NBA has gotten a little bit weaker than it has stronger like the last 2 years.
I agree. I think it's also partially due to the fact that, like, if you look at the top 3 right now, I think most people would say it's Jokic, Giannis, and Steph. Like, yeah, that's 3. Like,
and the 4th is just your favorite player, whoever you are.
Zach LaVine is the 4th best player in the league.
Yeah, John Morant, easily number 4.
That's one perspective.
SGA, easily number 4. The 4th spot in the top 5 players in the NBA is for the fans. That's why it's the 4th spot.
Draymond is an interesting pick for Giannis for that 5th spot.
For the 4th spot.
Yeah, 5th spot.
I would probably have Draymond personally, but
yeah,
we don't need to go down that road. It's a dangerous game.
Well, speaking of dangerous games, Crunchy Hoops says Cat is greater than Dirk as a big man shooter.
3-point shooter, yes, he is a better 3-point shooter than Dirk.
I think Dirk is
other stuff. Absolutely.
What if we scale this to eras, though? Like, if we appreciate the way that these guys played in different eras, and that a mid-range stretch is similarly valuable to a 3-point stretch based on the time they're playing in. Obviously a mid-range shot creates less space than a 3-point shot, but in terms of its normalcy, it's similarly viewed to.
I mean,
Like,
so
it
you're
would be
saying
Dirk
like
then, yeah,
if Dirk's mid-range shots were threes, he'd be taking 10 a game?
Not necessarily, but just a little bit of relativism can go a long way.
I don't know what you want me to do.
I mean,
with
if you're being relative, then it would still be Dirk.
yeah, like
Yeah.
Dirk is no worse than the third.
The
best
argument
mid-range
doesn't
shooter.
change. Yeah.
For me, my best mid-range shooters are MJ, KD. KD might actually be first, and then Dirk.
Gotcha. Well, let's see. We got Luka will be the MVP of the next season from Jay Gilbert. What are Luka's MVP odds this season?
I feel like I've decided I'm just not going to say Luka MVP until he has it, because like there's been a couple of years where it's like this might be the year. Pretty much ever since his rookie year, it's been like Luka MVP time. Nah. We'll see it when we see it. I'm not going to make any projections.
I'm in the same boat.
We're going to take a look at some Twitter takes again. This one says, Scoot Henderson will be more league ready than Wembanyama, especially during the first half of the season, and he'll be leading the Rookie of the Year race, maybe second behind Chet. A little bit of a complex take here, but, basically, Scoot Henderson better.
I do think like by the first 2 months of the season, Scoot will probably look more favorable than Wemby, which frankly, that can kind of decide the award, because I feel like so often people decide the award in the first couple of months of the season and then they don't care about changing information later on. That's why Jalen Williams was robbed of Rookie of the Year. But I think by the end of the year, Wemby's going to have it, because the thing that Wemby will have over Scoot is not going to be a top 10 offensive player. Wemby will probably be a top 10 defensive player, at least in that ballpark. Even if he does look sloppy on offense, he's going to have that.
I wonder how many years there's been where two rookies ended up on the DPOY ballot, getting DPOY votes. It's probably some crap in the 60s or something like that,
Yeah, probably a long time ago.
We live in historic times.
DPOY didn't exist in the 60s, so definitely not then.
Yeah, definitely not then.
It was invented in 1982, I think. Invented. They found all the elements to create the award.
Nicholas dropping $2 our way. This is like his 5th or 6th donation in the chat. Really do appreciate you. Hot take: Triple J is better than Ja. Parentheses, more valuable. Maybe if these extra 25 games just carry that much weight for you, and you just love defense and hate dunks.
I don't even think Jaren Jackson Jr. would agree with this take.
Yeah, right, when people are better, when people say players are better, I really hope that they just mean that when they're both healthy, because that's how I always look at it.
Yeah.
But this is kind of like the impact thing, I could see the point of view that Jaren impacts the game more often than Ja Morant does, but not every impact is created equal.
There's no doubt that Triple J is super valuable, super duper good, but Ja is just better.
J Will over Rookie of the Year is not a terrible take. Account 527-828-2293. You son of a bitch.
Let's see. We got Jamal Murray will be an All-Star starter this year. No longer being a candidate for best.
What's fucking Jamal Murray?
I'm telling you, the Jamal Murray show.
Jamal Murray doesn't really seem to care that much about putting up regular season numbers. Maybe you could argue last year he's just recovering from his injury throughout the season, which was part of it. But he might end up. I will say, I bet he is a first-time All-Star, because people probably recognize him at this point and can't deny it, and gets in kind of just off of the previous year's success. Because that happens all of the time. So when people say that the playoffs don't affect awards and things like that, it's that's horseshit. But that said, yes, I think he could be an all-star. Starter, I don't know, and I don't really care. I don't know why people care that much about who's the starter.
Yeah, I personally don't care at all.
It's a star next to you on Basketball Reference. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Let's see. Dame is not a top 15 player in basketball.
That is a very hot take.
It's a very wrong take.
If you want to put a guy like Ja over him, then this would have to make sense, I guess. But I think most people are going to take Dame over Ja. So
Yeah.
right, this is probably just wrong, but I could see a world where people make a convincing argument of this, somewhat convincing. Maybe I know this will trigger you a little bit, but the empty stats argument, the fact that there's, putting up 32 on a horrible team might count against him to a lot of people. Not exactly a known plus defender, but he's still Damian Lillard at the end of the fucking day.
Don't call me a son of a bitch because your basketball take is ass. I will. I'll do what I want, you son of a bitch.
Seethe.
And then more impact and more Bam Adebayo stuff. Bam Adebayo is the most impactful player on the Heat, not Jimmy Butler. How do we feel about that?
It's the same take from before.
Right.
It's just
just
Jimmy
now it's
Butler
Jimmy
instead of Jaylen Brown.
Right. And it's like, maybe if you just love defense, but whatever.
And being scared to body people.
So with that, I suppose we're all out of hot takes, unless someone wants to just throw us a ton of money right here at the end. Of course, here comes Nicholas with his 7th donation to close out the stream. If only Triple J could rebound Lamau. I'm big on defense. I like hearing your takes. Big fan. Watch all your videos. I like to see y'all going live. Appreciate the love, Nicholas.
That's really a wholesome note to end on. Thank you, Nicholas.
Yes. Normally we end these things on stupid bits or offhand comments that could be taken out of context, but not this time. It's just this lovely little donation. So thank you, Nicholas.
My heart is warm.